oddly enough, when I started racing go-karts and then got involved in car racing, up until I just finished probably my third year of Formula Ford racing before I really got into Atlantic racing, I owned a racing school.
Really?
Yeah, so I've always enjoyed that, and it was just because I had an interest in driving, being at racetracks, and teaching people how to drive and sort of helping and guiding. And my mom was a teacher. My sister just retired from being a teacher. My daughter's a teacher. There's no way I could actually pass an exam to be a proper actual school teacher, but you know, so I don't know if there's something in that. But I mean, yeah, it's just a lot of fun. So. I'm not sure who I am some days and what I'm doing, but Scott Goodyear, I'm the race director for the F4 and FR America's Championship here. Most known for probably the 1992 Indianapolis 500, probably from a racing perspective. Even though we won in IndyCars, and most people just really remember the 1992 Indianapolis 500 finish because it's the closest finish in the Indianapolis 500 history still today, which is remarkable.
How does that sit with you?
Usually it's okay. Yeah, I mean, you know, I guess it's ironic that I didn't think being in second would actually have any memories, I guess, if you will, but I guess because it's the closest finish, obviously it does. What I do find remarkable is that every time IndyCar goes to a new market, even in this last decade, you know, as a matter of fact, when IndyCar first went to Japan, all of a sudden, you know, a few months later, they get educated on IndyCar racing, and all of a sudden, wherever they do, they find pictures of the 1992 finish with Alan Sir Jr. and myself, and I'm getting it in the mail, fan mail. So, and I would say 50% of the fan mail I still get today is actually after that one race in 1992, which is remarkable. It's, you know, such a long time ago. Oh, favorite track of all times, you know, and I guess it sort of gets divided sometimes because I look at high-speed ovals, short ovals, or in road courses, I guess. But my favorite road course, natural terrain road course, is probably Road America, which is where we go also with our F4 and FR series. Very shortly close behind it, places like Mid-Ohio or places I've been in Europe like Hockenheim. You know, when you're talking about ovals, obviously just from an event perspective, probably the Indianapolis 500. I mean, you can't beat it as far as a high-speed oval is concerned, although I had more success at the Michigan track with the Michigan 500s, winning a couple of those. Short ovals, probably a place like Phoenix, the old Phoenix before NASCAR came in and changed it. The old Phoenix, and probably even a track that we don't even go to anymore, the IndyCar Series doesn't go to anymore, Nazareth, Pennsylvania, which is the hometown of the Andretti's. I mean, one of the most unique and quirky tracks that we ever had on that, with three corners that were all different, and the car had to be such a compromise to be able to work. And it was like driving around on the edge every lap around that place. It was a lot of fun. You know, back in the day, let me answer it this way. I think in my day, in the era of IndyCar, when I walked in my very first driver's meeting, I looked around and I saw Mario Andretti, the Unzers, Fittipaldi, Ray Hall. I mean, the names just went on and on and on. I sort of wondered if I belonged, you know, to a point, but they were all so strong, such strong drivers. You know, at any given day, you could be against any of them that were very tough to beat. What's in my garage? Well, there's a lot. Let me just do it this way. In my garage, my daily driver is an Audi Q7, which is a bit of a big beast, but I enjoy that. I do have a BMW and a Porsche, probably a few cars, but one of the neatest cars in my garage, although it's not my physical garage at home, is my 1992 Indianapolis 500 car, the McKenzie Financial car, which I own. So probably the coolest car in my collection, I guess, yeah.
What do you wish was in your garage?
What I always wish was in my garage? Well, probably an airplane. Not a car, but an airplane, so I can get around quicker. That would be much better. Favorite car of all time is probably my 1993 Mackenzie Indycar. It just worked really well, and we had a good car, and we were able to run up front a lot with that car. And 1993 was the first year I got my first pole position with IndyCar, so I think that car is sort of special. You know, it's funny because I guess for me, driving or getting a pole position for me was probably a point where I felt like I then finally belonged as an IndyCar driver. You know, I've been riding it for a couple of years, and you know, when you go out there and you can actually be the fastest of everybody for those 1 or 2 laps, then I felt like I really belonged. It sounds weird to say that, but that's sort of the way that I took it to a point. So the 93 car I think was very special. Sedan-wise, if you call that, or I call it tin tops, probably 2 cars. The Audi Quattro factory car that I got to drive in 1989 with Hans Stuck and Walter Roll and Hurley Haywood, I think was that. And then also the 1996 Porsche factory car that I got to drive at Le Mans, which was ultimately one of the coolest things I've ever done. Yeah. You know, when you have the knowledge and the understanding, and you've been doing it for so long, if you can, number one, if I can part the knowledge forward to make people understand how to get through the sequence of driving to be able to get to a point where they can actually become a professional driver, they're getting paid to do it, and shorten that time frame, then that's a lot of fun. And then all of a sudden they're driving cars, making a living, whether it's Indy cars or whatever they're driving. But if I can help them shorten up that time frame, that's number one. But most importantly, the stuff that I like that I do is to give them the knowledge of the racetracks and safety and trying to keep themselves out of harm's way. From us, what we end up doing is we take the kids out of karts. We're the first step into F4. So when they come out of karts, they come into F4, then they stay maybe a second year for F4, or else go into our F3 and FR, or maybe they go from there and now they move into what they call Pro 2000 or Indy Lights. And so we know we're a stepping stone for the series, which is really cool. It's a lot of fun. And then, like I said, then you turn around and you get to see these kids, they turn around and they all of a sudden they're now a professional driver and driving an Indy car and driving in the Indy 500. So, you know, that's the fun stuff for it, really. A lot of these kids are coming out of karts. So in karting, there's not really an etiquette in pit lane. They all just seem to come into pit lane and, you know, small karts, and they're sort of going all over the place. But when I started doing this, what I found out very quickly was that the go-karting mentality is really in place getting into a car because they've not done it before. And you would expect what you see is what you would sort of expect that you're going to see is, you know, just not a lot of education about that. So we get into, there's 3 lanes of pit lane. There's a high-speed lane when you come in, and then you turn around and you've got a transfer lane to get into your pit box. And then there's etiquettes to doing that and how to get in. There's also etiquette that when you leave your pit box, then you're supposed to blend up into the transfer lane and then get yourself into the high-speed lane. And for me, what I did when I came on board here is I do driver's notes, which is generally about 12 pages in total. And it's everything as I write it as first person, from sitting in the car in the pit lane to exiting pit lane and getting onto the racetrack, how to flow into traffic, and how to blend yourself back up into the speed to get into the racetrack and getting into the racing line. And then even information about the racetrack itself, because each racetrack has hot spots, there's absolutely no doubt about it, or areas where you can get yourself into trouble, whether you're driving by yourself or in amongst a bunch of cars and traffic and race. And then also getting into the pit lane. And it's just a lot of stuff, so there's not just a lot of mayhem on the racetrack itself or in pit lane. So I write these driver's notes to a point where I'm impeding all the knowledge that I have. It's usually, like I said, about 12 pages. They get the information, they get to read it. And then we do PowerPoint presentations when we do the drivers meetings here. We had a short meeting this morning for the practice day, and then we'll have another meeting on race day, which goes over race day procedures and starts and restarts and everything of that information. So I'm just imparting all this information that we've got, not only with myself, but with a lot of great people we have on staff.
mental process of turns, when to turn in, when to brake? Like, most of you don't think at this point, you just do.
Well, for me, I've been doing it a long time, so yeah, I guess it just sort of happens by just doing it and driving and talking and stuff. But the whole thing I always teach these guys, it's all about smoothness, and I always tell them that pretend that your buddies hold your arms and you step up on top of a basketball. And all of a sudden they let go of your arms, and your whole goal is to stay on top of that basketball. That's the balancing act that you're doing with the race car, because you're taking the weight of the race car and you're moving the race car around the racetrack with everything you do with the steering wheel, the brake pedal, and the gas. So you can see right now and feel that I'm going super smooth, and I just turned the steering wheel once there to get through the turn. Okay, so you're calculating what you need to do at the very beginning of the turn. And so I just turned in once and held the steering wheel. And a couple of things happen with that. The smoothness brings in speed, which is what everybody's trying to do. The smoothness is also making sure that you're not overheating the tire. So all those sorts of things is what drivers are here learning in the training format that we have. Our F4 series, 75% of the drivers every year are new to racing, coming out of karts and getting into cars. So for 75% of the field that's here today running with us, this is their fourth car race in their life for most of them. So it's pretty impressive. And when you see how they've turned around and how they've become much better, it really is gratifying, not only to myself, but all the staff that we have and everybody that's with us. That, a lot of people, like especially our staff, the stewards, a lot of these people have raced before or still race. So, and it's all about smoothness. So here, touching, squeezing the brakes, downshifting, turning in, balancing the car, you can feel that everything's smooth. Same thing here again. We use a little bit of curb, smooth on the gas, and then making sure that you're calculating where you're going to come out, just touching the curb as we do. And you feel how smooth the brakes are right there. I always tell them, pretend there's a hard-boiled egg in between the pedals. So between the gas pedal and the brake pedal, you touch and you squeeze the pedal, you roll back onto the gas so you can be smooth with everything that you're doing. Because if you're really abrupt with it, then you turn around and you end up with the car starting to slide from underneath you. And anytime you're sliding, you're going slower, and then you're overheating the tire. So acceleration. Okay, I've got my braking point, touch and squeeze, and then rolling off the brake pedal, balancing the car, putting the tire to the limit where it is. And this is one of the longest turns in this race course, and one of the longest turns that we ever do in our series here. So I always tell the drivers, make sure that you're not overpowering the outside tire, because it will last for about 2 or 3 laps. And then in the end result, what ends up happening is you overheat the tire. Tire gets overheated, it starts to lose its grip, and then all of a sudden what you end up doing is you're going for the last 10 laps of the race, and all of a sudden you don't have any grip in the tire, so you start to go slower, and then they try to overcompensate it, and then what they end up doing when they end up doing that, overdriving the car, and in the end result they end up sliding off the racetrack. So it's all about taking care of your equipment and having a plan when you get into the car. A go-kart race, somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15 minutes in a 350-pound go-kart. Okay, here we're in our race cars are about 1,450 pounds, and we're in the race for 30 or 35 minutes. That's a big difference, and that's what the kids need to understand. And like I said, they're young, they come out of karting, they come to us, and most of them are 15 years of age. So when you think about it, they don't even have a driver's license yet. So they're not used to looking down the road. They're only really used to looking directly in front of them with the go-kart that they've been racing, and the guy's 20 feet in front of them, and they're used to looking at the back of the helmet. They don't look off into the sides here. We have to train them to look for the flag stations and to look up over the hill. Like I'm already looking towards a turn down there. I'm touching my brake, I'm looking, and even though I'm looking and driving into this turn, I'm already looking down to the next turn down here at turn 5 to see what's around there. Okay, now I'm into this section here, and now I'm going to turn around. I can see the pickup trucks over here on the left-hand side. They're doing some work. And so now I'm here, but I'm already looking 6. I can see the 1 marker. I can see the cone left-hand side for that. The flag station's on the left-hand side, and that's what I'm looking. And here's our apex cone, which we put out the cones for the very first day for them to learn. I'm already looking at the turn 1, the 1 braking marker and the cone here. Same thing now.
So you're braking it 2.
So I'm braking it 2. So now I'm going out. I'm scanning. My eyes are up. Okay, and this is what we're teaching them, and this is a long turn. So we're here, but I'm looking way over there already. And I'm letting my peripheral vision sort of pick up where we are on the racetrack. and I know my next apex is tight. So now I'm here, but I'm already scanning to the left. I can see the cone, okay, and then we're turning around, and
so you're not even looking at the apex, you're way past it?
I'm letting the peripheral vision pick it up because I'm looking to where I'm going. If I'm looking off the nose of the car, then that becomes an issue, because then you're going to miss everything that's happening in front of you, especially for these kids that are doing 125 miles an hour. And that's like I mentioned before, in the go-karts, you know, they're not going that fast compared to what they're doing here. And the straights are a lot shorter, the corners are a lot tighter, and you know, a lot of them don't have many flag stations around. So here you have to take everything. I explain to them, start to look into the mirrors, to see who's around you and understand what kind of cars you have. And before you pass people, before you pull out, peek in the mirror, because what might end up happening is that somebody might already be starting to pass you. And if you pull out, you can interlock wheels, and then you guys end up in an incident. So, yeah. And that's, you know, there's so much we try to impede, and they're not going to all learn it within, you know, 1 race weekend, 2 race weekends, or 3 race weekends. And that's the real thing that's joyful for us, is to turn around and see how they progress. And, you know, you take them from race 1 to, you know, the last race of the year, the 18th race of the series, completely different drivers. And they're much more confident, you know, they got a spring in their step, and, you know, they enjoying what they're doing, and they get to drive a race car, which is pretty cool at that young age, that's for sure.
You've had 3 huge phases to your career. Most people don't get one that successful. What do you attribute that your success to?
What do you mean when you say when
You're IndyCar driver, broadcaster.
You know, I guess just you're involved in this industry, you know everybody, and you know, people come to you, like on the television side, people came to me, and I never thought about doing television. And oddly enough, I took a long time, probably took me from, well, I crashed at the Indy 500. I got crashed out and had my second broken back, so that was May. And they asked me to do the broadcast all throughout the summer and start the following year. And I didn't tell them until November. I thought, okay, I'll do that. I'll sign for 1 year. I said, I'm going to do it for 1 year, because we were, you know, I was starting to slow down a little bit, and we had built a cottage and I wanted to be with the family. And yeah, and I ended up staying doing 17. So, I mean, I wouldn't have thought that whatsoever, just because you enjoy it and you enjoy being at the racetrack. And this is the same sort of thing. You know, this is one of the options after television finished. And I thought, you know what? I think I'd like to still be at a racetrack, and working with young drivers, because I owned my school. And I thought, you know, I got some ideas, I'd like to do this. And that's how I ended up getting to a point to where we are now. And now, yeah, it's just cool. You know, we generally have the largest F4 series in the world, and it's just neat to see the excitement on the drivers' faces. And I tell all the you know, I tell all the parents all the time, because I lived it. My young son Michael drove karts, and then he got into a car for the very first time. And then you know, and I remember when I went through driving school, as long ago as it was, I was getting strapped into a Lola Formula Ford, and in my mind it was red, and Gilles Villeneuve was making his mark at that point in time. And in my mind, I was like sliding into a red Ferrari, you know, because I was like, it was at Motorsport Park, which is the entire Motorsport Park. And I still remember that today. So I know for all these drivers what they're going through. And I tell the parents, just, you know, the first time they drive a car, whether it's at a school, whatever they do, just have your camera ready, because when they take their helmet off, they're gonna have the biggest smile on their face. Yeah.